I am sitting in that chief marketing officer role or VP of sales, or I'm leading a marketing team at a, let's call it 5, 10, 50, 100, $300 million company, where am I putting my chips? How am I trying to put the best foot forward for us? So I am trying to find ways that I can increase revenues and sales. Obviously, everybody wants to do that. But probably what's more important than just saying increase revenue and sales would be, how do we get more people buying more stuff from our companies? Like, that is a way to increase sales. I don't need 100 people buying 100 things. So jumping in on this state of marketing report that HubSpot has put out, I thought we would take a few minutes and talk through what was said, where HubSpot thought things were going. They talked to 1,400 marketing professionals out there, and where they thought things would be in 2024. So as we're entering, we're in the back half of 2024, some of the top trends that HubSpot was referring to, everything from how they drive more awareness, engagement, personalization, efficiency, and growth. I think it's hard to probably focus on all of those. And from where we sit, working mostly with B2B companies, in our opinion, it looks like if we could find ways that companies, specifically mid-market B2B type companies, are focusing on awareness and efficiency, I think those are the things that will actually drive growth. So from just the awareness standpoint of how easy is it to find you? And there are a lot of different ways to get to you, the business owner. So how easy is it to make that process happen? And then on efficiency, what are you doing to automate manual tasks? There's a lot of tools out there, but the more that you can make yourself operationally efficient, and you can move through, redundant tasks, things that are very manual that could be automated, the better off you will be. And then finally, those are the things that actually lead to growth. So whether that's getting it through operational efficiency or even finding a way to niche down in your audience, I think those are the things that probably lead you towards growth here in 2024, 2025, 26. Ken, what did you see from the report?
Yeah, well, first, James, I must agree with you on all those points. I mean, the idea of niching down is just incredibly important. And they talk a lot about personalization, but you need to build that awareness, and you need to be able to find those audiences that you can then niche down into. So certainly agree with you there, as well as the operational piece, right? So marketers have lots of to-dos and lots of lists of things they need to get done. And a big theme in the report was how to use AI to do a lot of that. And I see in so many of my discussions, if it doesn't come up within the first 5 minutes, it dominates the rest of the discussion anyway, AI. So AI was a common theme here across, whether it be around efficiency, whether it be around personalization, whether it be around content development, right? So businesses need to be thinking about, how are they using AI to support the business? How are they using it to free up marketers? One of the larger comments made in the report was, how do we get more creative by having AI take away some of the redundant tasks, which was an important thing. A couple of things that jumped out to me, James, that were a bit surprising was the issue around third-party data going away. Now, that is not surprising. We've been talking about that for a while. But the fact that companies are really starting to get their head around what they refer to as data-driven marketing, which seems an evergreen concept for quite a while now. And I was surprised to see companies really stepping up and saying, yeah, this is important. I'm just surprised they're saying it now as opposed to a few years ago. So with third-party data going away, obviously they need to create more first-party data and understand their customers at a deeper level. Again, introduce AI maybe to help with some of that. So that was one of the findings in the report that surprised me a little bit, as I kind of assumed companies were further along. At least the companies I've been speaking to have been thinking about that for a while.
Yeah, I think that we're all starting to realize the value of first-party data. Most of us in the space have been, on top of the mountain screaming this for probably the best last 3, maybe 4 years. And that your job is to collect as much contact information as you possibly can through whatever mechanism tools that you can do so. And this idea that we'll be able to chase people around the web and be able to give proper attribution to this person made this decision, went through these customer journey points, ended up ultimately with this purchase. I think that's going to be very, very difficult to do. Now, if you're Amazon or American Airlines or Home Depot, you might be able to have a better shot at that. But for the vast majority of companies, that investing in that level of infrastructure and data and tying and connecting all that plumbing together is challenging at best. And so how do we kind of like take that down a level and be like, all right, well, we're not going to be the Tesla of data, but what are the things that we can do? How can we start to fill in? And whether that's through working more on our CRM by making sure all of our information is loaded in our CRM, is focusing on the different channels and platforms that are available for us to connect with our customers. There was, one of the things in the report was around social selling and social service, right? So how are we literally leveraging these platforms to be able to connect with our customers? And then how are we putting the right mechanisms in place for communication, whether that's messaging or bots or online chat or, beefing up on our FAQ sections, like whatever that might be. But like, how are we making it easy for people to be able to communicate with us? And I think that probably leads to like this changing buyer that's out there. And so one quick thought on that, and Ken would love to hear your thoughts, is just a theory of mine, but coming out of COVID and sort of that like 3-year time period, we have moved past that now. And in that, we've also had a changing buyer. So in my opinion, things have kind of aged up a little bit. And the buyers, and I'm talking specifically probably like B2B buyers, even B2C buyers, tend to be more Gen X, more millennials, baby boomers aging out, but yet us as a industry or a targeting tactic don't seem to be focusing on these people. We might be hiring them. We might be putting them in positions to run our companies, to lead sales, to lead product development, to make buying decisions, but we are not talking to our buyer like they are the people we are hiring. And these people are looking for reduced pieces of friction. They are looking for the automatic demo, the don't have to talk to somebody, the relying on reviews to make buying decisions. And yet we as the company are not talking to them in our marketing. We're still doing the old things, right? The email, writing blogs, going to trade shows, all those things are great. And yet when it comes to the person buying your product or service, we are not reducing the amount of friction it takes for that person to buy our product or service.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, James. I want to tie a couple of things you said together. So the report does a really good job laying out a number of marketing tactics along the way, personalization, engagement, and so on. But I think the point you're really getting at is we need to move beyond the tactics and think about more strategically who the customer is. And then which of these tactics is going to best work in which way towards these customers. So to your point about the aging up of the buyers, particularly in B2B buying, IDC had done some research on that, and it wasn't all that recent. I mean, it was as far back as 5 years ago, I think. And it was talking about this aged up buyer. And it was, James, talking about exactly the things you're talking about, is the way they expect the selling process to be different. So this kind of isn't your father's Buick anymore, right? This is a different process I want. I need different social proof. I need you to build trust with me differently. And I need to go out and find the information I need to make this decision. And organizations are slowly getting there, perhaps. but again, more slowly than I think the market wants them to. I think the market's pulling really hard, and there are these friction points. Now, specifically to email, as you mentioned it, I was surprised to see email in there as one of the big channels, but I was also surprised to see this really robust ROI on email of 36 to 1.
Yeah, that seems to be a number that we've had forever. Like it's always 30 to 1, 35 to 1.
I would have assumed that would be degrading by now or degraded. But as long as you're seeing that ROI number like that, I think it becomes an easy call for marketers to continue it, even if it's not particularly effective. And let's get back to the data for a minute. Let's pull the whole picture together. Here is where we need to understand acquisition of customers, say, made by this channel of email. How did they turn out in the long run? Are we getting good conversions? Are we keeping them longer? Do they have high lifetime value? And here is where I think, again, taking that strategic view, who the customers are, what is it we know about them or are learning about them so that we can make better decisions going forward.
Yeah, if you look at things that were driving ROI for companies, and just kind of looking through this report of like sure bets, the keeping up with the times, marketing trends that deliver the ROI, short form video, 17%, selling on social media apps, 12%. But yet marketers are still facing these same challenges. What's the challenges they face? Traffic and leads, keeping up with trends, understanding customers and their needs. And so if they were looking at if you were to look at what are the sure bets? What are the things that, if I am sitting in that chief marketing officer role or VP of sales, or I'm leading a marketing team at a, let's call it 5, 10, 50, 100, $300 million company, where am I putting my chips? How am I trying to put the best foot forward for us? So I am trying to find ways that I can increase revenues and sales. Obviously, everybody wants to do that. But probably what's more important than just saying increase revenue and sales would be, how do we get more people buying more stuff from our companies? That is a way to increase sales. I don't need 100 people buying 100 things. I need 10 people buying 10 things. That is where growth will come from. So if I'm a marketer or a VP or CMO or even CEO of a company, and just having that mindset shift of, I don't need 1,000 people buying my stuff, right? I need 100 people buying 100 things. If that math works. And then I think the other thing that's important is that the pie is getting smaller. And so what I mean by that is how are we increasing the brand awareness and reaching our audience? We cannot afford to go out and talk to everybody. Screaming as loud as you can for as long as you can is not a marketing strategy. And so how do we, quote unquote, niche down, spend our time, energy, effort, and resources talking to the right audiences, niching down and saying, hey, this other audience might be important, but really we're going to focus on these people because they're the ones that are going to buy 10 people are going to buy 10 things. And then taking that into our organizations about how are we going to increase the efficiency and improve the marketing and sales alignment. So CRM, customer follow up and follow through, understanding who our buyer is. If they're 35 years old, consider this, Ken. If you're 35 years old, you were born in 1990, your first year of college, you had an iPhone. Your entire life has been nothing but pushing things at a button, having self-service, talking to your friends, FaceTime. And that's a complete dynamic from the 45-year-old who grew up, who did not have a cell phone in college, but had the internet, or the 55-year-old who didn't have any of it. And so if we just think about how those things kind of come together, we have just moved forward so fast through, I think that COVID era just pushed us to the next level. And so if we have these types of companies and we're dealing with these types of people, then how are we finding ways to increase the awareness, niche down on our audiences, communicate with them through messaging apps, developing more social proof, creating more video content like this, finding ways for people to buy from us and reduce the amount of friction it takes to buy our products and services.
Absolutely spot on. COVID was a slingshot, right? It took trends that were happening and it just amplified them in a huge way. And, as I say to people often, business to business buyers don't distinguish between, oh, I'm wearing a business to consumer hat today when I go to Home Depot and get something, as opposed to when I'm sitting in my office. They expect the same experience, and I'm going to use my phone. I'm going to do search there, and I might want to do FaceTime and so on and so forth. So couldn't agree more that we need to kind of get with it as marketers in terms of who are these customers. And again, it comes back to some of the data. And to your point, it's kind of like, diet and exercise. We need to get some of the information in place, the tech in place, the strategy in place as to who are our customers so that we can understand them, understand the way they want to interact with us, so that we're not just plotting out an experience because, well, these are the channels we have. Oh, and by the way, HubSpot is saying video is working really well, so we're just going to do more there. But really thinking about what is the experience these folks want, right? And how can we shepherd them along that? And by the way, at every step, learn when they're not doing things. Understand, well, maybe there's a sub-segment here, an even deeper niche that we can go after because they make a left at this point when other people make a right. So that's all, spot on. I do want to go back to your point about the awareness, which ties to that and so on. It's no accident that the things that I speak to business buyers about and really provide accelerators in the market on are really a couple of key topics. One is called retention and customer growth. So to your point, James, I have already done the hard work of acquiring this customer. How can I make the investment pennies on the dollar to keep this customer and grow them? To your point, I don't need 100 people buying one thing each to sell 100. If I take my 10 and sell them each 10, I'm just as well off, maybe better off in many ways because I know them much more deeply. So retention and customer growth, at the end of the day, the money all goes to the bottom line either way, right? Whether it's a new customer or a retained customer. So retention and customer growth is the fastest road. And oh, by the way, the better job you do with retention and customer growth and loyalty, you'll get more referrals. You'll understand better what the customers want. We understand that in our buyer's journey, they like to have FaceTime with us. They want to be seeing the product in this way. They want to understand it that way. And that helps you even own that niche even more. So a lot of it comes down to, again, the basics around who these customers are, how can I understand them so I can gain loyalty, retain them, and grow them, and what are the analytics I need. And, I know that scares a lot of people when you talk about analytics. Some of it's just basic stuff. Some of it's just filling the gaps, understanding what they want. There's more than enough tools out there to do the research, to do statistics. There's AI out there to help you with pieces as well. But if we can really focus in, if I were a CMO, I'd be thinking a lot about those two things as I think about how do I then expand into new logos, new customers, and so on. During COVID, people had no choice but to buy this way. The way 40 years ago, people had no choice but then to walk down to the corner and buy their loaf of bread. And what it did is it took a lot of, so we always had people that were very online oriented. You always had people that were just never going to go, but you had the huge middle. And how do you move the huge middle, right? So there were people that were in the middle that maybe ordered certain things online, but not everything. But now during COVID, if you wanted food, you had to order it online. If you wanted your cleaning supplies, et cetera, you name it. What it is, it brought people into what I would look at it from a marketing point of view as the customer experience universe. And they're like, okay, this isn't so scary. Oh, by the way, that's really convenient to do that on my phone. At the same time, and maybe this isn't directly tied to the COVID slingshot, you had lots of other online businesses really maturing, such as things like online gambling and such, where people are now so comfortable with their phones that they'll pretty much do anything on them. So you had a lot of these things coming together, and COVID became the central point of, okay, you're comfortable with that device. Now you're going to use it to order everything, food, supplies, you're going to do your work from home, you're going to be leveraging it, and so on and so forth. And so we come out of COVID with, while there might have been a laggard group and a leading group and a big middle, much smaller middle, everyone moving more to the mass, some faster than others, but everyone's online oriented now. There's no two ways about it. And they're not making the distinction between personal life and business life. I use my phone.
No, and I think there's also a social media component to it. So going back to the social commerce and how people are more comfortable buying straight from Facebook, straight from Instagram, like the way that these things are becoming native to the app or to the platform. And so think of like Google search, still dominant, maybe not as dominant. And let's be honest, like it was 90%, maybe it's like 85 now, 87, 82. It's still an amazing amount of how people get there. But a more educated consumer, and it does not matter B2B or B2C, there's actually a quote from HubSpot that said, as search fragments and consumers take their queries to TikTok and Reddit before Google, growth and social media teams need to forge a new partnership. I think that is 100% spot on. I think that we're going to see probably more buying coming to LinkedIn, if we honestly haven't already, owned by Microsoft. Tremendous growth in LinkedIn engagement over the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Coming out with new tools, new ways of communicating on there, and only a matter of time until it becomes the buying engine for B2B, just like Etsy and TikTok and Facebook and Instagram are already that way. So I think that's a really important thing for businesses and CEOs, CMOs, operations, product developers to be thinking about where growth is going to come from in their company, what channels and platforms, and then how are they going to make it easy to buy their product, and then also deciding where are people going to be able to buy our product.